The rain drums against the windshield, a steady metronome marking time as Lucas sits motionless in his car. He's been there for nearly 5 minutes now, engine off, staring through sheets of water at his own garage door. The light is on. It shouldn't be. He distinctly remembers, no, he is certain. He turned it off that morning. His fingers grip the steering wheel tighter as the light flickers once, as if acknowledging his confusion. Lucas is 42, divorced for 3 years, an accountant who prides himself on precision. The type of man who checks locks twice, who sets his coffee maker on a timer each night, who keeps his tax returns in acid-free folders organized by year. The garage light is never left on. His daughter Melissa wouldn't have stopped by. She's with her mother this week has been since Sunday. No one else has a key. The rain intensifies, a curtain between him and what might wait inside. He finally steps out of the car, shoulder hunched against the downpour. Water immediately soaks through his dress shirt as he fumbles with his house keys. The front door opens with its familiar creak. Inside, nothing seems disturbed. The living room sits in the half-darkness of early evening, furniture casting long shadows. The kitchen is exactly as he left it. Coffee mug in the sink, mail stacked on the counter, yesterday's banana peel in the trash. Lucas stands still, listening for any sound beyond the rain. There's nothing. Slowly, methodically, he walks through each room. His bedroom is untouched. The guest room that was once Melissa's sits empty, door ajar exactly how he leaves it to circulate air. The bathroom, towel hanging slightly crooked, but he remembers rushing that morning. Everything is in place. Everything except that light. Lucas approaches the door to the garage. He pauses, hand hovering over the knob. What exactly is he afraid of? He's being ridiculous, probably just forgot to switch it off in his morning hurry. He turns the knob and steps inside. The garage is cool and smells of concrete dust and old motor oil. Everything appears normal at first glance. His workbench against the far wall, pegboard with tools hanging above it, recycling bins neatly stacked in the corner. The light fixture hangs from the center of the ceiling, an ordinary bulb glowing steadily now, no more flickering. Lucas walks over and inspects it. Not burnt out. Actually, it looks new, clearer and brighter than he remembers. His gaze travels to the workbench below. Something is off. The screwdrivers, his set of 8, from tiny precision to heavy-duty Phillips, are arranged differently. He always keeps them in descending order of size, but now they appear randomly stacked. The bright yellow handle of his favorite, the one he uses most often, peeks out from the bottom of the pile. "Must be losing my mind," Lucas mutters, rearranging them to their proper order. The rain continues its constant patter against the garage, door somehow making the small space feel even more enclosed. He gives the room one last surveying glance before switching off the light and closing the door behind him. That night, Lucas sits at his kitchen table with a glass of whiskey, scrolling through work emails but not really reading them. The house feels different somehow, heavier. He can't shake the feeling that something has shifted, like returning to a room where all the furniture has been moved an inch to the left. He tries calling Melissa, but she doesn't pick up. Probably doing homework or out with friends. She's 16 now, perpetually busy with a social life he can't begin to comprehend. He finishes his drink and heads to bed early, exhausted from the long day and his own paranoia. The rain shows no signs of letting up, creating a white noise that should be soothing but instead keeps him alert, listening for something else beneath it. Despite this, he eventually drifts off, dreaming of endless spreadsheets with numbers that keep rearranging themselves when he looks away. Something wakes him at 2:17 a.m. Lucas stares at the red digits of his alarm clock, trying to determine what pulled him from sleep. Then he hears it, a soft, distinct clink, metal on tile. It's coming from the kitchen. He sits upright, heart suddenly pounding. The sound doesn't repeat. The house is silent except for the continuous rainfall. Lucas slides out of bed, slipping, his feet into slippers more out of habit than need. He doesn't turn on any lights as he moves through the hallway. Some instinct tells him to remain unannounced. The kitchen is dark except for the dim glow of the microwave clock. Lucas reaches for the light switch, hesitates, then flips it on. The sudden brightness makes him squint. Nothing seems out of place. He walks slowly around the island counter, checking the floor for anything that might have fallen. Nothing. The back door is still locked, deadbolt engaged. Get it together, he whispers to himself, rubbing his eyes. He's being absurd, jumping at house noises, probably just the pipes contracting in the cold or the refrigerator cycling on. He pours himself a glass of water, drinks it standing by the sink, then returns to bed, leaving the kitchen light on. Morning arrives with continued rain, softer now but still steady. Lucas feels groggy, unrested. He shuffles to the kitchen to start coffee, and that's when he sees it. A screwdriver on the counter. The small one, the precision flathead. It sits, perfectly centered on the granite, dry despite the storm that had raged all night. Lucas stares at it, coffee forgotten. He distinctly remembers putting it away yesterday, arranging it with the others. He picks it up. It's cool to the touch, the metal showing no sign of condensation or water. It couldn't have been there all night. He would have noticed when he came in to investigate the sound. He puts it down and backs away, an irrational fear creeping up his spine. For the first time in years, he calls in sick to work. After the call, he sits at the kitchen table, the screwdriver still where he left it, and makes a list of possibilities. Break-in, but nothing's missing. House settling, but the screwdriver didn't move itself. His ex-wife with the spare key, but why would she bother? Each explanation seems more unlikely than the last. By afternoon, Lucas has convinced himself he's overreacting. He must have absent-mindedly carried the screwdriver in from the garage and set it down. He's been working too much, not sleeping enough. Simple as that. But as he returns the screwdriver to the garage, he can't help buying a small motion-activated camera from an app on his phone. It arrives by evening delivery. Setting up the camera is simple. It clips onto the pegboard above his workbench, angled to capture most of the garage. The device syncs to his phone, and Lucas tests it, watching the recording of himself walking in front of it. The picture is clear, even in the dim garage light. It's overkill, he knows, but it will help him sleep. Just to be safe, he double-checks every window, every door in the house before turning in. That night, Lucas dreams of the screwdriver turning slowly on the kitchen counter, rotating on its own like a compass needle seeking north. In the dream, he watches, paralyzed, as it points toward the garage door. He tries to call out, but can't make a sound. He wakes abruptly at 3:12 a.m. covered in sweat despite the cool room. The rain has finally stopped, leaving an unusual silence. Lucas reaches for his phone on the nightstand and checks the camera app. His heart skips. The garage light is on. The timestamp on the live feed shows 3:12 a.m. He watches, holding his breath, but nothing moves in the frame. After a full minute of staring at the screen, he switches to the recorded footage and rewinds. The garage is dark for hours. Then, at exactly 3:12 a.m., the light blinks on. Lucas frowns. The door never opened. Not the one connecting to the house, not the main garage door. No one entered. The light simply turned on by itself. He plays the footage again, slower this time, watching carefully. As the light comes on, something catches his eye. A faint shadow flickering across the back wall, as if someone walked between the light and the camera. But that's impossible. He can see the entire garage and it's empty. Lucas rewinds once more, frame by frame. There, a distortion, a shape that doesn't resemble him or anyone he knows. It's there for only a split second, then gone. He pauses, tries to go back, but the video suddenly turns to static. The feed freezes, then cuts out entirely. His phone vibrates with a notification, storage full. Lucas tries to clear space, delete other videos, but his fingers are trembling now. He manages to remove some old photos, then returns to the app. The file is gone. No saved footage from the night, just the current live feed showing the garage, light still burning. Lucas sets the phone down, noticing for the first time that his right hand is clutching something. The smallest screwdriver from his set is in his grip, though he has no memory of retrieving it. His palm is sweaty around the handle, and the tip, was that a smudge? He brings it closer to examine it, but can't make out any detail in the dim bedroom light. He needs to turn on a light to see clearly, but suddenly he's afraid to move. The screwdriver feels heavy in his hand, important somehow. A thought bubbles up from somewhere deep in his subconscious. What if he's been the one rearranging things all along? The next morning, Lucas calls a locksmith to change all the locks. Then, an electrician to check the garage wiring. The electrician finds nothing wrong, no shorts, no faulty connections. Sometimes old houses just do weird things, the man says with a shrug. Lucas doesn't mention that the house was built just 12 years ago. That afternoon, he receives a text from his ex-wife. Melissa left her math textbook at your place last week. She needs it. When can I pick it up? Lucas freezes, rereading the message 3 times. Melissa hasn't been to his house in nearly 2 weeks. He calls his ex immediately. What do you mean she was here last week? Wednesday, his ex-wife says, sounding annoyed. She said she stopped by after school to grab some clothes she'd left. Said you were at work, but she used her key. Wednesday. The day before, he noticed the garage light. Lucas ends the call and walks slowly to Melissa's old room. It looks undisturbed until he opens the closet. A hanger is empty that he's sure held her favorite sweater. On the dresser, the framed photo of them at the beach is slightly askew, fingerprints smudging the glass. And there, in the corner, a small muddy footprint he hadn't noticed before. His phone buzzes with another text from his ex-wife. Actually, we'll come by tonight, around 8. Lucas spends the afternoon in a daze, moving from room to room, looking for other signs of his daughter's visit. Why wouldn't she have told him she was coming by? Why use her key secretly? The questions circle in his mind without resolution. By evening, he's sitting in the kitchen, waiting. The room is spotless. He spent hours cleaning, though he couldn't say exactly why. The screwdriver set is complete again, all 8 arranged precisely on the pegboard in the garage. The security camera is gone, removed and returned to its packaging for refund. At 7:58, headlights flash across the kitchen window. Car doors slam. Lucas takes a deep breath and opens the front door before they can knock. Melissa stands there, tall and thin in her rain jacket, dark hair pulled back in a ponytail. She looks so much like her mother it sometimes hurts to see her. Behind her, his ex-wife waits in the car, engine running. "Hey, Dad," Melissa says, giving him a quick, awkward hug before slipping past him into the house. "I just need my book. It's in my room. Were you here last week?" Lucas asks, following her down the hallway. "Mom said you came by on Wednesday." Melissa doesn't look back at him. "Yeah, just for a minute. Needed clothes for Jen's party." "You should have told me you were coming." She shrugs, entering her old bedroom. "You were at work. Didn't seem important." Lucas watches from the doorway as she retrieves a textbook from the desk drawer. Something about her movement seems off, too deliberate. "Did you go into the garage?" he asks suddenly. Melissa finally turns to face him, expression unreadable. "What? The garage? Did you go in there when you were here?" A strange look crosses her face, something between confusion and concern. "No, why would I?" She steps closer, studying him. "Dad, are you okay? You look really tired." Lucas forces a smile. "Just work stress. Long week." Melissa nods, but doesn't look convinced. She moves past him toward the front door. "I gotta go. Mom's waiting." "Wait," Lucas says, catching her arm gently. "Is everything okay with you? You'd tell me if something was wrong, right?" For a brief moment, Melissa's expression softens. "Everything's fine, Dad." Then she glances down at his hand on her arm, and something shifts in her eyes. "I should go." Lucas releases her, noticing for the first time that he's gripping her harder than he intended. He steps back. "Sorry, have a good night. Study hard." She's already moving toward the door. "Always do. See you Sunday." After they leave, Lucas stands in the empty house, listening to the silence. It's starting to rain again, a gentle patter against the windows. He walks to the garage door, hesitates, then opens it and flips on the light. Everything is in place, tools arranged, floor swept, order restored. He's about to turn away when he notices something on his workbench. A small spiral notebook, open to a blank page. Next to it, a pen he doesn't recognize. On closer inspection, the top sheet shows the faint impression of writing, as if someone had written on the page above it, now torn out. Lucas runs his finger lightly over the indentations, trying to make out the words. He can't decipher much, just what looks like help and possibly a date. The handwriting isn't his. It might be Melissa's, but somehow different, more frantic, pressed harder into the paper. He takes the notebook to the kitchen table and finds a pencil. Carefully, he shades over the page, revealing more of the impression beneath. Words begin to emerge. Garage and watching and please help. The rest is too faint to make out. Lucas sits back, staring at the partial message. A chill runs through him despite the house's warmth. Was this Melissa's? Why would she write something like this and then tear it out? His phone buzzes with a notification. The garage security camera, he had reconnected it without really thinking about it, has detected movement. He opens the app. The garage is empty, light still on. But as he watches, the image distorts briefly, pixelating around the edges. For just a second, he thinks he sees something, a figure standing by the workbench looking directly at the camera. Then it's gone. The timestamp reads 8:42 p.m., current time. Lucas drops the phone. It clatters against the table as he jumps up. He needs to call Melissa. He needs to know she's safe. But as he reaches for the phone, the kitchen light flickers once, twice, then steadies. And in that brief moment of returning brightness, he sees his reflection in the window over the sink. Behind him, just visible, is a shadow that doesn't match his own. He doesn't turn around. He can't. Instead, he watches the reflection as the shadow slowly raises what looks like a hand holding something long and thin. A screwdriver, his favorite one with the yellow handle. The garage light goes out. The kitchen plunges into darkness. And Lucas finally understands what's been happening all along, why things move when he's not looking, why tools appear where they shouldn't be, why the camera showed something that couldn't possibly be there, why Melissa looked at him with that strange mixture of fear and concern. The truth is much simpler and much worse than anything he imagined. In the morning, when Melissa receives a text from her father asking her to come over, she doesn't think twice about it. The message seems normal enough, friendly even, but when she arrives, the garage door is open and the light is on even though it's bright daylight. She calls out as she enters. No answer. Something catches her eye on the workbench. Her father's phone, unlocked, open to a message thread with her name. The last outgoing text sent isn't the one she received. Instead, it reads, "Don't come over. Not safe. I'm not myself anymore. It was never sent. If you've been holding your breath through this story, hit like and subscribe. The next one might be closer to home than you think." Story 2. The Detour. The wipers struggle against the downpour, squeaking with each arc across the windshield. Marisol adjusts the speed setting, but it makes little difference. The storm is too intense, water coming down in sheets. The clock on her dashboard reads 11:42 p.m. She should have been home 20 minutes ago, but her shift at the call center ran late, as it always did on Thursdays when they processed the backlog of customer complaints. She yawns, fighting the heavy drag of fatigue behind her eyes. The radio plays softly, some late-night talk show discussing urban legends. Marisol isn't really listening, focused instead on the treacherous road ahead, illuminated in brief flashes by her headlights. She's driven this route hundreds of times, could probably navigate it blindfolded. Tonight, though, everything looks different, distorted by rain and darkness. Her phone chimes, the navigation app interrupting the radio with a warning. Route blocked ahead. Calculating alternative. Marisol frowns. The mechanical voice continues. In 500 feet, turn right onto Harmon Industrial Parkway. Industrial Parkway, she mutters. She's never been rerouted this way before. Typically, flooding would send her up through the northern suburbs, adding 10 minutes but keeping her on well-lit roads. This new route cuts through the old manufacturing district, largely abandoned since the factory closures 5 years ago. The turn appears suddenly, a narrow intersection marked only by a street sign, nearly obscured by overgrown branches. Marisol slows, peering through the rain-streaked windshield. Her instinct says to ignore the directions to find another way home, but the GPS insists, and she doesn't know this area well enough to improvise. Reluctantly, she makes the turn. Immediately, the character of her drive changes. The road narrows, streetlights becoming scarcer, spaced farther apart. The buildings loom dark and hollow on either side, old warehouses with broken windows loading. Docks empty and rusting. Everything has that peculiar stillness of places long abandoned by human activity. Her headlights catch a chain-link fence topped with barbed wire, a faded sign warning no trespassing, barely legible through years of weather damage. Keep straight for 1.2 miles, the GPS instructs. Marisol grips the steering wheel tighter, her knuckles whitening. The rain intensifies, a deafening roar against the car roof. She turns up the radio, seeking comfort in human voices, but static has replaced the talk show. She switches it off. That's when she sees him. A figure in the middle of the road, illuminated in her headlights. A man in a blue parka, hood pulled, up, walking slowly away from her, in the same direction she's driving. He doesn't have an umbrella, doesn't appear bothered by the torrential rain soaking through his clothes. Marisol eases her foot off the accelerator, the car slowing to a crawl. The man doesn't react to her approach, doesn't step aside or turn to look. He simply continues walking, pace unhurried, as if taking a pleasant stroll through a summer park. Rather than a deserted industrial zone in a midnight deluge, she debates whether to honk. What is he doing out here? There are no residential buildings nearby, no open businesses. The closest gas station is at least 3 miles back. Her thumb hovers over the horn, but something stops her. A strange reluctance, an instinctive hesitation. Instead, she steers slightly to the left, giving the figure a wide berth as she passes. Through her side window, she catches only his profile. Pale skin, eyes fixed straight ahead, expression blank. No acknowledgement of her presence, no reaction at all. Just that steady, purposeful walk through the downpour. Marisol accelerates, slightly once past him, glancing in her rearview mirror. The road behind her is empty. No blue coat, no walking figure. Nothing but rain and darkness. She blinks, looking again. The street stretches straight back for at least 100 yards, in the glow of her tail lights. Nowhere to turn off, no alleys or doorways where he could have disappeared. He's simply gone. A chill runs along her spine that has nothing to do with the car's air conditioning. She presses the accelerator harder, eager now to leave this place behind. The GPS chimes again. In 200 feet, turn left. The intersection appears ahead, a 4-way crossing with a single traffic light swinging in the wind, flashing yellow. The street sign reads Mercer Industrial Access Road, but beyond. Marisol can make out a barricade partially blocking the way. As she draws closer, she sees a reflective orange sign. Road closed. Turn left, the GPS insists. Marisol hesitates, then makes the turn anyway. The barricade only covers half the road. Work crews probably forgot to finish setting up, or perhaps it was moved by someone needing to pass through. Either way, there's enough space for her car. The new road is in worse condition than the last, cracked asphalt with potholes that her suspension protests against. Puddles so deep, they splash up over her hood. The buildings here are even more dilapidated, some partially collapsed, others covered in graffiti tags faded by years of weather. No streetlights at all now, only her headlights cutting a path through the darkness. She's driven about 100 meters when she sees it, a truck parked diagonally across the road ahead, effectively blocking passage. It's an old pickup, dark-colored, impossible to make out details in the rain. The headlights are off, but as Marisol approaches, the tail lights blink once, a brief flash of red, then nothing. She stops, engine idling. The truck doesn't move. No one emerges from the cab. She checks her phone, thinking to call for help, but the signal has dropped completely. No service in this concrete canyon of abandoned buildings. Rerouting, the GPS announces suddenly, making her jump. But the screen freezes, the blue dot of her location pulsing in place, no route visible. Marisol puts the car in reverse, intending to go back the way she came. Her headlights illuminate the road behind, now completely dark. The yellow flashing traffic light no longer visible. She could have sworn the intersection was closer. She backs up slowly, trying to remember how far she drove. The rain drums, harder, almost violent against the roof and windows. Her wipers can barely keep up, creating a strobe-like effect as they sweep across the glass. Flash, darkness, flash, empty road, flash, a figure standing behind her car. Marisol slams on, the brakes heart pounding. She stares into the rearview mirror, nothing there, just rain and shadows. She's letting her imagination get the better of her, fatigue combining with the strange environment to play tricks on her mind. She puts the car in drive again and turns around in a tight three-point turn, back toward the intersection, away from the mysteriously parked truck. She'll find another route, even if it means driving all the way back to the main road. The drive back seems longer somehow, the buildings more menacing in their emptiness. Twice, she thinks she sees movement in her peripheral vision, a shadow, passing between structures, something flitting across the road behind her. But when she looks directly, there's nothing. After what feels like an eternity, the flashing yellow light appears ahead. Relief washes over her as she approaches the intersection. She'll turn right back to the original road, then find a different way around the flooding. But as she reaches the crossing, she notices something different. The road closed sign is gone. Both directions are clear. And the street sign, it now reads Mercer Avenue, not Mercer Industrial Access Road. Marisol shakes her head, confusion and unease building. She must have misread it earlier, distracted by the rain and barricade. She makes the turn, following the GPS as it recalculates a new route. Within minutes, she's back in familiar territory, the E. Commercial district, with its 24-hour convenience stores and fast food restaurants. Neon signs glowing through the rain. The comfort of recognition washes over her. Another 10 minutes and she's pulling into her apartment complex parking lot. By the time she reaches her door, Marisol has almost convinced herself that nothing unusual happened. Just bad weather, a stressful detour, and an overtired mind creating shadows where none existed. She takes a hot shower, letting the warmth drive away the lingering chill in her bones. It's only when she's hanging up her jacket that she notices it, a small smudge of red on the right sleeve. It looks like paint, though she can't imagine where it came from. Her car hadn't brushed against anything during the drive. She makes a mental note to treat the stain before it sets, then collapses into bed, exhaustion claiming her almost immediately. She dreams of rain and empty streets, and a man in a blue coat walking endlessly ahead of her, never turning around. Morning. Brings sunshine and the everyday routine that helps push the strange detour to the back of Marisol's mind. She texts her friend Elena during breakfast. Crazy storm last night. Got detoured through the old industrial zone. Creepy AF. Elena responds immediately. Industrial zone? By yourself? Girl, that's how horror movies start. Marisol smiles, typing back. Tell me about it. Saw some weird dude walking in the rain, disappeared when I looked back. Ghost hitchhiker, classic urban legend. Check your back seat before driving today. The exchange lightens Marisol's mood, reducing last night's unease to an amusing anecdote. She finishes her coffee, grabs her keys and heads out for Saturday errands. The city looks renewed after the rain, puddles reflecting blue sky, everything washed clean. She's in the grocery store when her phone chimes with a notification. Voice memo recorded yesterday at 11:57 p.m. Marisol frowns, not remembering recording anything. She plugs in her earbuds and plays it. At first, there's nothing but the sound of rain hitting a car roof, the rhythmic swish of wipers. Static intermittently cuts through. Then, faintly, almost, lost beneath the noise, a whisper, "Turn around." Marisol yanks the earbuds out, heart suddenly racing. The voice isn't hers. It isn't anyone's she recognizes. Low, raspy, urgent. She plays it again with the volume lower. Turn around. Then more static, and the recording ends. Her hands shake slightly as she deletes the file. She must have accidentally triggered the voice memo app during her drive. The whisper, probably just radio interference or the sound of tires on wet pavement distorted by poor recording quality. That's all. But the rational explanation doesn't stop her from checking the back seat before getting into her car, or from taking the longest, most well-lit route back to her apartment, or from double-checking all her locks before bed that night. 3 days pass. The incident begins to fade, overtaken by work stress and everyday concerns. On Wednesday evening, Marisol decides to finally clean out her car, something she's been meaning to do for weeks. She starts with the trunk, removing reusable grocery bags, an emergency kit, and assorted junk that somehow accumulates despite her best intentions. Under the spare tire cover, she finds something that doesn't belong, a folded piece of newspaper. It's wrinkled and water-stained, as if it had been soaked through and dried again. Curious, she unfolds it carefully, the paper fragile and threatening to tear along its creases. Most of the text is illegible, the ink blurred beyond recognition. But one headline remains clear enough to read, "Body found on detour route, man in blue parka," and below it, a date from 3 years ago. Marisol stares at the paper, her breath catching. She doesn't remember ever putting a newspaper in her trunk. She certainly doesn't remember this specific article. With trembling fingers, she searches for more information, but the rest is lost, words dissolved into waterlogged pulp. Except for one more line, partially legible at the bottom of the page, "Remains unidentified. Police suspect accident. Walking in storm." She drops the paper, suddenly desperate to be away from it. Back in her apartment, she searches online for the headline, for any information about a body found in the industrial district. Nothing comes up. No news articles, no police reports, nothing matching the headline from the mysterious newspaper. That night, unable to sleep, Marisol drives back to the industrial area. In daylight, with no rain, she tells herself, just to prove there's nothing sinister there, just to put her mind at ease. The route seems different now. The GPS directs her along major roads, no mention of Harmon Industrial Parkway. When she tries to find it manually on the map, it doesn't appear. She drives to where she thinks the turn should be, but finds only an empty lot overgrown with weeds, chain-link fence intact all along its perimeter. No road, no intersection. Confused, she continues driving, looking for landmarks she remembers from that night. Nothing matches her recollection. The industrial zone exists. She can see warehouses and factories in the distance, but the specific roads she traveled seem to have vanished, replaced by different streets with different names. As the sun begins to set, Marisol decides to leave. Whatever happened that night, whatever strange detour she took, she can't find her way back to it now. Perhaps that's for the best. She's waiting at a traffic light when her phone chimes. New voice memo recorded seconds ago, though she never opened the app. She stares at the notification, finger hovering over it. Slowly, reluctantly, she presses play. Rain sounds, static, then that same whisper, "Behind you." Marisol looks up, into her rearview mirror. In the back seat, barely visible in the gathering dusk, is a blue parka neatly folded. It wasn't there before. She's certain of that. The light turns green. The car behind her honks. Marisol doesn't move. Can't move. In the mirror, a pale face slowly rises from below the seat line. Eyes forward, never turning toward her. A hand reaches out, fingertips brush against her shoulder. The blaring horn jolts her back to reality. The mirror shows an empty back seat, no coat, no figure. The car behind her honks again, more insistently. Marisol drives home in a daze, checking the mirror constantly. Nothing appears. No voice memos record themselves. Everything is normal. That night, she dreams again of the man in the blue parka. In the dream, she's standing on an empty road in the rain. He walks toward her this time, face obscured by the hood. She calls out, asking who he is, what he wants. He stops just in front of her and slowly raises his head. The face beneath the hood is her own. She wakes with a gasp, sheets tangled around her legs. The bedside clock reads 3:27 a.m. Rain patters softly against the window, another storm moving in. Marisol lies still, listening to the drops hit the glass, trying to calm her racing heart. From the living room comes a sound, the chime of her phone receiving a notification. She doesn't move, doesn't breathe. The notification tone sounds again, more insistent. Minutes pass before Marisol finds the courage to get up. She walks slowly to the living room, where her phone sits on the coffee table, screen illuminated. One new notification. GPS route saved, detour home. She never saved a route, never labeled anything detour home. With a shaking finger, she opens the map. The route begins at her call center and winds through unfamiliar streets before disappearing off the edge of the visible area. The starting point is marked with a blue pin. The destination is marked in red. It's not her apartment. The labeled destination simply reads, "Where you belong." Marisol deletes the route, deletes the app for good measure, then turns off her phone completely. Outside, the rain continues, creating rivulets down the window pane like streaming tears. In the morning, she calls in sick to work. She spends the day researching old news archives, police reports, local history. Nothing about a man in a blue parka found dead. Nothing about mysterious disappearances in the industrial district. Nothing to explain what happened that night. She's almost convinced herself it was all an elaborate stress reaction, hallucinations, brought on by fatigue and the storm, when she receives a text from an unknown number. It contains only an address and a time. Harmon Industrial Parkway and Mercer Avenue, 11:57 p.m. tonight. Marisol blocks the number immediately, throws her phone across the room for good measure. She's not going back there, not tonight, not ever. But as evening approaches, bringing with it another storm, she finds herself getting into her car, finds herself driving toward where she thinks the industrial zone might be, finds herself whispering, "I just need to understand what's happening to me." The GPS on her dashboard remains off. She navigates by memory and instinct, taking turns that somehow feel right. The rain begins, gentle at first, then building to the same torrential downpour as that first night. The wipers struggle to keep up, creating that same hypnotic rhythm that nearly lulled her to sleep before. She finds herself on an unfamiliar street that somehow feels exactly right. Industrial buildings loom on either side. The clock on her dashboard reads 11:52 p.m., 5 minutes to whatever is supposed to happen. Marisol slows the car, peering through the rain-streaked windshield. The street sign ahead reads Harmon Industrial Parkway. Her breath catches. She found it, or it found her. The intersection approaches, Harmon and what must be Mercer. A single traffic light swings in the wind, flashing yellow, just like before. But this time there's no truck blocking the way, no barricades, just empty, rain-soaked streets stretching into darkness. She stops at the intersection, engine idling. The clock reads 11:56 p.m. 1 minute to go. Marisol grips the steering wheel, knuckles white. What is she doing here? What does she expect to find? She should leave, should turn around and drive away as fast as possible. But she remains frozen, watching the seconds tick by. 11:57 p.m. Nothing happens. No figure in a blue parka. No mysterious truck. No whispering voice. Just rain and empty. Streets and the sound of her own breathing. Relief washes over her, followed immediately by embarrassment. What was she thinking? Of course there's nothing here. She's been working too hard, sleeping too little, creating connections where none exist. She's about to put the car in drive when her phone chimes from the passenger seat. Impossible. She left it at home. But there it is, screen illuminated, a new notification displayed. Voice memo recording. The phone is recording. On its own. Red light blinking in the darkness of the car. A tap on her window makes her scream. She whips around to see a pale face pressed against the glass, distorted by raindrops. A man in a blue parka, hood down now, revealing features that are almost familiar, like a forgotten acquaintance. He motions for her to roll down the window. Marisol shakes her head, fumbling for the ignition. The man's expression doesn't change. He simply reaches for the door handle and pulls. The door opens. It shouldn't. She always locks her doors, but it does, letting in a gust of cold, rain-scented air. The man leans down, water dripping from his face, his clothes. Up close, his features shift subtly, never quite settling into one configuration. "You came back," he says, voice exactly like the whisper in the recordings. They always come back. Marisol tries to speak but can't find her voice. The man reaches past her, picking up the phone that's still recording. He holds it between them. "Do you want to know what happened?" he asks. "Why you can't find any records? Why the roads change? Why I'm here?" She manages a small nod. The man's expression shifts into something like pity. 3 years ago, someone took a detour on a rainy night. Someone hit a pedestrian walking along this road. Someone drove away without stopping, without calling for help. He pauses, eyes never leaving hers. "Do you understand now?" "No," Marisol whispers, but a cold certainty is spreading through her chest. "I've never hit anyone I would remember." "Would you?" The man's form seems to flicker in and out of focus like a bad transmission. "If you were exhausted? If the rain made it hard to see? If you convinced yourself it was just a pothole or debris in the road?" Memories flash through Marisol's mind. A late-night drive 3 years ago, a storm much like this one, a thump she'd written off as a branch hitting the car, a smudge of red she'd cleaned from the bumper the next day, telling herself it was paint from a construction marker. "No," she says again, but weaker this time. The man reaches out, fingers brushing her cheek. His touch is cold, barely there. "The detour isn't a place," he says softly. "It's what happens when your life veers off its path. When you make a choice, you can never take back." The voice memo app on the phone stops recording. In the sudden silence, Marisol can hear her own ragged breathing, the pounding of her heart. "What do you want from me?" she finally asks. The man steps back from the car, rain soaking through his parka. "What everyone wants," he says, "to be seen, to be acknowledged, to matter." He turns and begins walking away, down the middle of the street, just as she'd seen him that first night. "Wait!" Marisol calls out, suddenly desperate not to be left alone with the knowledge settling like ice in her stomach. "What am I supposed to do now?" The man pauses but doesn't turn around. "You're already doing it," he says, voice carrying clearly despite the rain. "Every night, the same detour. Every night, the same realization. Every night, you come back. Here looking for absolution. That's not possible," Marisol whispers. "This is the first time." "Is it?" he asks. Then he continues walking, form growing fainter with each step, until he disappears into the rain and darkness. Marisol sits frozen, keys in the ignition, wipers still sweeping across the windshield. Her phone lies dark on the passenger seat. When she finally picks it up, hands trembling, there are no notifications, no voice memo recordings, no text from an unknown number. But the screen's wallpaper has changed. No longer her smiling selfie with friends, but a newspaper headline, "Body found on detour route, man in blue parka." She drives home slowly, carefully, checking and double-checking every shadow on the road. In her apartment, she plugs her phone into the charger and falls into bed fully clothed, too exhausted to even remove her shoes. In the morning, her phone is gone. In its place on the bedside table is a blue parka, neatly folded, and pinned to it a handwritten note. "See you tonight." At work, Marisol searches online news archives from her office computer, looking for any mention of a pedestrian accident 3 years ago. Nothing appears. She checks her car's service records, a front-end repair 3 years ago that she doesn't remember authorizing. A receipt for a new bumper and headlight assembly, paid in cash. That night, and every night after, the storm returns. The detour reappears. The man in the blue parka waits at the intersection of Harmon and Mercer. Sometimes Marisol stops to talk to him. Sometimes she drives past without slowing. Sometimes she tries different routes, different decisions. It never matters. The road always leads back to him, back to the truth she can never escape. One night, weeks into this cycle, Marisol stops at the intersection. The man approaches her window as always, but this time she steps out of the car into the rain. This time she walks beside him down the empty street. This time, she doesn't look back. In the morning, Marisol's apartment is found empty. Her car, still parked at the intersection of 2 streets, that, according to city records, don't exist. Her phone is recovered from the vehicle, containing a single voice memo recorded at 11:57 p.m. When played, it contains only rain sounds, static, and a woman's voice whispering, "I'm turning around now." If this detour kept you on the edge of your seat, like and subscribe. The road you're on might be darker than you think. Story 3. The Guest Room. The house creaks under the assault of the rain, old wooden beams protesting against the weather as they've done for nearly 50 years. Eleanor Porter sits in her living room armchair, the lamp beside her casting the only light in the otherwise dark house. It's just past midnight, and sleep eludes her, as it often does these nights. Retirement has done little to adjust her internal clock after 32 years of early mornings as a history teacher. She listens to the rain pound against the roof and windows, finding rhythm in its chaos. Today now, her younger sister Hannah will arrive for a 4-day visit. Their first real contact in years, beyond the occasional holiday card or brief phone call on birthdays. The thought tightens Eleanor's chest with a mixture of anticipation and dread. They were close once, before the arguments over their mother's care, before Hannah moved across the country without so much as a proper goodbye. 7 years of distance that grew into a chasm, neither seemed able to bridge, until Hannah's unexpected call last month. "I'd like to visit, if that's okay. I think it's time we talked." Eleanor had agreed immediately, surprising herself with her eagerness. She'd spent weeks preparing, cleaning the guest room that had gathered dust since her last visitor, a colleague from school who'd stayed for 2 nights during a conference 3 years ago. She'd bought new sheets, aired out the mattress, stocked the refrigerator with Hannah's favorite foods, assuming her preferences hadn't changed in 7 years. Now, with less than 12 hours until Hannah's arrival, Eleanor finds herself gripped by insomnia. What will they say to each other after so long? Will the old wounds reopen, or have they finally scarred over? She's contemplating these questions when a noise catches her attention. Not the rain or the house settling, but something else, a soft thump from upstairs. Eleanor tilts her head, listening. Another thump, followed by what sounds like footsteps. Impossible. She's alone in the house. Setting her book aside, Eleanor rises from her chair and moves toward the staircase. The wooden steps creak beneath her slippered feet as she ascends, one hand trailing along the banister. At the top of the stairs, she pauses, looking down the hallway. The light is on in the guest room. A thin line of yellow glows beneath the closed door. Eleanor frowns. She's certain she turned it off after her final inspection of the room that afternoon. Could she have forgotten? At 67, she finds her memory isn't what it once was, but she's not that forgetful. Not yet. She approaches the door slowly, listening. No sound comes from within. No more footsteps, no movement at all. Just silence beneath the continuous drumming of rain on the roof. Eleanor stands outside the door for nearly a minute, debating whether to knock. What would she even say? Hello? To an empty room? In the end, she returns to her bedroom without checking, attributing the light and sounds to her imagination, to pre-visit anxiety manifesting in strange ways. As she settles back into bed, the house creaks and groans around her, a language she's learned to interpret over decades of residence. Nothing unusual, nothing to concern herself with. Tomorrow, Hannah will arrive, and the house won't feel so empty. Morning brings no respite from the rain, but it does bring clarity. In daylight, Eleanor feels foolish about her midnight concerns. Of course, there was no one in the guest room. The light must have been a trick of shadow, the sounds merely the house protesting against the storm. She busies herself with final preparations, fresh flowers on the dining table, clean towels in the guest bathroom, a pot of Hannah's favorite tea ready to be brewed. At precisely 11:47, the doorbell rings. Hannah stands on the porch, suitcase beside her, umbrella doing little to keep her dry in the sideways rain. She's thinner than Eleanor remembers, her once dark hair now streaked with grey, but her smile is the same, slightly crooked, revealing the chipped incisor from a childhood bicycle accident. "You look good, Ellie," Hannah says after an awkward embrace. "So do you," Eleanor replies, though it's not entirely true. Up close, Hannah's face shows new lines, dark circles under eyes that seem slightly sunken. She looks tired. More than tired. Exhausted. Bad flight? Eleanor asks, leading the way upstairs with Hannah's suitcase. Just long, and I don't sleep well on planes. Hannah follows, her footsteps heavier than Eleanor recalls. The rain doesn't help either. Forecast. Said it'll continue all week. That's April for you, Eleanor says, opening the guest room door. Remember how we used to count the days of rain when we were girls? Mother would give us a penny for each consecutive day we tracked correctly. Hannah smiles faintly. I remember. You always kept the most accurate count. The guest room is exactly as Eleanor left it. Bed neatly made, curtains open to what would be a garden view if not for the rain, reading lamp positioned perfectly beside the nightstand. Nothing out of place, no sign that the light might have been on during the night. I'll let you get settled, Eleanor says. Lunch in 30 minutes? Hannah nods, already unzipping her suitcase. Sounds perfect. That afternoon passes pleasantly enough, the sisters carefully navigating conversation around neutral topics. Hannah's job as a pharmaceutical sales representative, Eleanor's adjustment to retirement, the renovations to the neighborhood park. They avoid mention of their mother, of the bitter arguments over nursing homes versus in-home care, of the accusations that flew between them in the months before her death. Dinner is equally polite, accompanied by a bottle of wine that loosens their tongues just enough to introduce warmer memories. Summer vacations at their grandparents' lake house, school projects they'd collaborated on, the secret language they'd invented as children. By 9 o'clock, the strain of travel catches up with Hannah. I think I need to turn in, she says, stifling a yawn. It's been a long day. Of course, Eleanor replies, gathering their empty glasses. Breakfast at 8? Make it 9, Hannah asks, already moving toward the stairs. I could use the extra sleep. 9 it is. Later, lying in her own bed, Eleanor listens to the continuing rain and finds herself smiling slightly. The reunion hasn't been as difficult as she feared. There's distance still, but not the coldness she'd dreaded. Perhaps given time, they might rebuild something of what they once had. She falls asleep to these thoughts, only to wake suddenly, at 2:17 a.m. For a moment she's disoriented, unsure what roused her. Then she notices the thin line of light beneath her bedroom door. A light on in the hallway? She didn't leave any on when she went to bed. Eleanor slips out from under the covers, feet finding her slippers. Opening her door, she sees the hallway is dark, except for one source of illumination, light spilling from beneath the guest room door. Hannah must still be awake, perhaps reading or unpacking. She approaches the door, about to knock, when something stops her. Not a sound from within, but rather the absence of sound. Complete silence. No movement, no rustling of papers, not even the sound of breathing. Just stillness beyond. The door. Eleanor stands frozen, hand raised to knock. A strange reluctance takes hold of her. Something about the quality of the silence feels wrong. As if the room beyond isn't merely quiet, but somehow empty, despite her sister's presence. She lowers her hand without knocking and returns to her bedroom, closing the door softly behind her. In the morning, over coffee and toast, Eleanor asks casually, "Did you have trouble sleeping? I noticed your light was on quite late." Hannah looks up, brow furrowed. "No, I slept like the dead. Never even turned the light on. Must have been out before my head hit the pillow." Eleanor pauses, butter knife suspended over her toast. "Are you sure?" "Around 2 in the morning there was definitely light coming from your room." "Positive," Hannah says. "I took a sleeping pill and was unconscious until about 10 minutes before I came down." She tilts her head, studying Eleanor. "Maybe it was from something else, a car's headlights passing by?" Eleanor considers this, then nods. "You're probably right. The house plays tricks sometimes, especially during storms." But later, when Hannah goes out to pick up some toiletries she forgot to pack, Eleanor checks the guest room light. The bulb is cool to the touch, showing no signs of having been on recently. The bedside lamp is unplugged entirely, Hannah apparently not needing it for reading. That night, Eleanor goes to bed early, pleading a headache. In truth, she wants to be awake at 2 to see if the light appears again. She sets an alarm for 1:55 a.m., but her body, accustomed to her routine, wakes her at 1:52 without it. She slips out of bed and cracks her door open slightly, watching the hallway. At exactly 2:17, a soft glow emerges from beneath the guest room door. Eleanor's heart beats faster. She waits 5 minutes, then slowly makes her way down the hall. Outside the door, she hears nothing. No television, no movement, just that same unnatural silence. But there's no mistaking the light. It seeps under the door, creating a thin yellow line against the dark hallway carpet. Eleanor raises her hand and knocks softly. "Hannah, are you awake?" No response. She knocks again, slightly louder. "Hannah?" Still nothing. Eleanor hesitates, then slowly turns the doorknob and pushes the door open a few inches. The room beyond is completely dark. No lamp on, no light source at all. Hannah lies in bed, breathing the deep, regular rhythm of sleep. Eleanor closes the door quietly, confusion and unease washing over her. She must have imagined the light, or perhaps it was some trick of the house, a reflection from outside despite the drawn curtains. She returns to her room, sleep now elusive despite her exhaustion. Over the next 2 days, strange patterns emerge. Eleanor hears things at odd hours, the sound of a drawer closing too carefully to be casual, muffled coughing at 3 a.m., though Hannah claims to be in perfect health, a soft thump followed by the creak of floorboards outside her bedroom door. Always at night, always when the house should be still. She begins to suspect Hannah might be looking through old belongings, searching for something specific. Eleanor keeps family memorabilia in several places. Photo albums in the living room bookcase, childhood keepsakes in the attic, their mother's jewelry in a locked box in Eleanor's closet. Is that why Hannah truly came? To find something from their past? The third morning, Eleanor comes downstairs to find a photograph placed on the dining table. It's from one of the family albums, a picture taken at their grandparents' lake house when Hannah was about 8. In it, Hannah stands alone on the dock, staring directly at the camera with an unsmiling expression. Eleanor isn't in the picture. She was likely the one taking it, though she has no specific memory of this moment. When Hannah comes down for breakfast, Eleanor holds up the photo. "Did you find this in one of the albums?" Hannah frowns, taking the photograph and examining it. "No, I haven't looked at any album since I've been here." She hands it back. "Why is it out?" "I was hoping you could tell me," Eleanor says, studying her sister's face for any sign of deception. "I found it here on the table this morning." "Well, it wasn't me," Hannah says, turning to pour herself coffee. "Maybe you took it out and forgot?" Eleanor doesn't argue, but she knows she didn't. She returns the photo to its album after breakfast, marking the page mentally. That night, the light appears again beneath the guest room door. This time, Eleanor knocks immediately. When no answer comes, she opens the door without hesitation. The room is dark, Hannah asleep in bed. The bedside lamp remains unplugged. Eleanor checks the overhead light. The switch is in the off position. She stands in the doorway for nearly a minute, watching her sister sleep before quietly closing the door. Back in the hallway, she looks down. No light shows beneath the door now, but she knows what she saw, knows with absolute certainty that moments ago, light was spilling from this room. Light with no source. The final morning of Hannah's visit, Eleanor wakes early. The rain has finally stopped, weak sunshine filtering through her bedroom window. She stretches, feeling stiff and unrested after another night of disrupted sleep. Hannah's flight leaves at 2. Just a few more hours, and the house will return to its normal, predictable quiet. She dresses and goes downstairs to start breakfast, planning to make Hannah's favorite blueberry pancakes as a peace offering of sorts. Despite the polite conversation, tension has been building between them, unspoken questions hanging in the air. As she passes the guest room, Eleanor notices the door is slightly ajar. She pauses, then pushes it open gently to check if Hannah is awake. The room is empty. The bed is made, the suitcase gone. No sign of Hannah's presence remains, no toiletries in the adjoining bathroom, no book on the nightstand, no phone charger. Plugged into the wall. Eleanor frowns, checking her watch. It's only 7:30. Hannah's flight isn't until afternoon. Where would she have gone so early, and with all her belongings? Downstairs, she searches for a note but finds nothing. She tries calling Hannah's cell phone, but it goes straight to voicemail. No text messages explain the sudden departure. Confused and slightly hurt, Eleanor returns upstairs to strip the guest bed. Perhaps Hannah received an emergency call, to leave suddenly for work reasons. It wouldn't be the first time her sister had left without a proper goodbye. On the nightstand, Eleanor spots something that stops her cold. The photograph from the album, the same one that appeared on the dining table 2 days ago. Only now, looking at it more carefully, Eleanor sees something impossible. In the picture, she's there too. Standing behind Hannah on the dock, her hands resting on her sister's shoulders. Eleanor stares at the image, breath caught in her throat. She was certain she wasn't in this photo. Certain she was the one who took it. Yet there she is, clear as day, smiling at the camera, while Hannah remains unsmiling, eyes fixed on the lens. Eleanor's hands begin to tremble. She sinks onto the edge of the bed, photo clutched between her fingers. This can't be right. This isn't how she remembers the picture. This isn't... Her phone rings, startling her so badly she nearly drops the photograph. Hannah's name appears on the screen. Eleanor answers immediately. "Where are you?" She demands, relief and confusion mingling in her voice. "Your things are gone." A pause on the other end. Then Hannah's voice sounding distant and slightly confused. "What do you mean?" "I'm at home, Ellie, in Phoenix." "But you're here. You've been here for 3 days." Another pause, longer this time. "No, I haven't. I'm calling to apologize for canceling my trip. I couldn't get the time off work after all. I meant to call sooner, but things have been hectic. I'm sorry for the late notice." Eleanor feels the room tilt around her. "You never came?" "No. I'm still in Phoenix. Are you okay, Ellie? You sound strange." Eleanor can't answer. The phone slips from her fingers, landing on the neatly made bed. Outside, rain begins to fall again, pattering against the window in a rhythm that suddenly seems menacing rather than soothing. A noise draws her attention to the closet, the door slowly creaking open on its own. Inside, she can see 2 suitcases standing side by side. One is hers, stored there for years. The other is unfamiliar, dark blue with a luggage tag she can't quite read from where she sits. The photograph in her hand feels suddenly cold. Eleanor looks down at it again. Now neither she nor Hannah appear in the image. Just an empty dock stretching out into grey water. From downstairs comes the sound of the front door opening, followed by footsteps in the hallway. Heavy, familiar footsteps, moving with purpose, toward the stairs. Eleanor rises from the bed, moving to the guest room door. She closes it softly, then turns the lock with a quiet click. From the hallway comes the sound of someone, something, climbing the stairs, one step at a time. Methodical, unhurried. The footsteps reach the landing, pause, then begin moving down the hall toward the guest room. Eleanor backs away from the door, the photograph still clutched in one hand. The light switch on the wall flips up on its own. The bulb illuminates, casting the room in harsh brightness. Outside the door, the footsteps stop. A soft knock follows, 3 gentle taps against the wood. "Eleanor?" comes a voice that sounds exactly like Hannah's. "Are you in there? I'm home." The doorknob turns slowly, catching against the lock. Another knock, firmer this time. "Eleanor, let me in. I need to talk to you." Eleanor remains frozen, unable to speak, to move, to breathe. The pounding intensifies. "Eleanor, open the door." The voice doesn't sound like Hannah anymore, doesn't sound human at all. The light in the room flickers once, twice, then stabilizes. The pounding stops abruptly. Silence descends, broken only by the soft patter of rain against the window. Slowly, the lock on the door begins to turn on its own. If this story kept you awake at night, hit like and subscribe. The next visitor might be waiting for you when you're alone, and there's one more, waiting just a click away. It might explain what's missing here, or make everything worse.